Anthony Moore, thank you so much for being with me today. You have been growing up in Custer County, fifth generation native. How has that influenced your life?
Well, I would tell you, I obviously don't know any different, but I wouldn't change it for anything. My family predated statehood here, and I look at last night, for example, I took my son out to our family farm that we've owned since 1931, and I get emotional. I got emotional with him last night, and talking to him about things that matter, things that I remember my granddad and my dad telling me, and so it's really important to me, obviously. And I think that growing up in Custer County, I had incredible opportunities. Obviously, I moved away for a little bit and came back after college and law school, and after getting married. But I came back on purpose to raise my kids here, because I don't think there's a better place in the world to raise a family. And I'm very, very proud of that opportunity. And that's why ever since we moved back here, I've been looking for ways to give back, including in this role. This is not really something that I ever sought out to do or planned to do. As a politician, I never planned to run for office, even though I was a political science major. It was never in my plans. But tell God your plans and you'll hear him laugh. He put me in this position, and I'm very thankful for the opportunity, because I get to give back to a part of the best part of the world that gave me so much.
Yeah. And you mentioned it, all the opportunities you had in Custer County. You grew up more or less on a farm type of thing, how so many people here. What did you do after as a profession?
So I went to college, and as I said, I was a political science major, went straight to law school. I knew as a high school student that I wanted to be an attorney. Maybe not for the right reasons, but again, God works in mysterious ways. And so I went to law school at Oklahoma City University, graduated from there, started doing some oil and gas work, and then did some medical malpractice work, went back to oil and gas, and then really fulfilled the reason I went to law school was to be a district attorney. Had the opportunity to come back home and be in the DA's office here for 2.5 years under Dennis Smith and Angela Marcy, and it was fulfilling a dream there, getting the opportunity to serve the citizens of both Ouachita County, Custer County, and then some of the surrounding areas. It was a big blessing. And so obviously I went out in 2015 into private practice, and I still practice privately on the side between working at the Capitol.
Mm-hmm. And obviously you have been working, let's say, normal jobs compared to high-class politicians, so you really know a little bit about the people, what are their concerns, what matters to them. So all these things you have been working, the oil and gas, lawyer, district attorney, how does it influence your work today as a politician?
Again, this was never my plan, but it's amazing how things work the way they were supposed to. The opportunities I've had being in the DA's office, being in the oil and gas industry, and then also just as a private practice, some of the issues that I face, I've had the opportunity to already make an impact about those, and they really work together well. They give me a very, very broad background where I can talk about several different areas and talk about my experience in several different things to really make an impact in those areas at the Capitol. And I appreciate you saying that the Capitol seems like a higher elevation. It's not. It's a service job. I tell people all the time, it's no different than a waiter or waitress. Your job is to serve. And if you're not doing it well, I sure hope that you're voted out, because the people of Oklahoma need and deserve someone who's going to represent them to the best of their ability. And I tell my son all the time, my kids all the time, that while it seems like a quote-unquote glamorous job, really it shouldn't be about that. It's about service, and if you're not serving people well, then you're doing it wrong.
Mm-hmm. And you have mentioned it a little bit. You want to serve. You want to serve the community and give back what the community has given you. What other factors made you decide in 2020, right, to make the decision, okay, I'm running for office now?
Well, I said no many times. I was asked, and I think I said no at least 3 or 4 or 5 times before I ever started thinking about it seriously. And really what pushed me over the edge was a conversation with my wife. At the time, our children were 8, 6, and 2, and I didn't think there was any way that she would ever even think about me being gone for the majority of 4 months a year, not to mention having that on my plate on top of legal work when I am home. And she and I met with a few different friends of ours that have done it with small children, have served with small children, or served as newlyweds. And some we weren't newlyweds, but we were still only married about 11 years at that time, and so still relatively young. And so I wanted to make sure that it was something that I thought it had to be a joint decision, and she's what pushed me over the edge. We were driving home from one of those meetings with another legislator from El Reno. We were driving home, and she looked at me and said, "Listen, you've been trying to give back ever since we've gotten here. You've served on multiple boards. You've donated your time, your money to give back. You have a chance to give back to 40,000 people instead of just Clinton. You really need to take that opportunity. God's put this in front of you, and you need to pursue it." She and I both agreed it wasn't about winning; it was about running. Regardless of the outcome, we were going to do the best of our ability and try to serve. And if the people thought that I was the right decision, then so be it. And if they didn't think so, then so be it. I'll go on and continue to live and find other ways to serve. So it was really incredible. It's been a year now. It's been a very long year. It seems that election was seems like a decade ago right now. It was an incredible opportunity, and really it was a joint decision because I wouldn't do it without her.
Mm-hmm. And are you planning in 2022 to run again?
I am. I announced about 2 months ago that I am going to run again, and that's another thing. My wife and I decided, you can serve for up to 12 years, but it's a 2-year job at a time, and I told her that would be a decision that we made jointly every time, and this was an easy decision to run because there's some things that we've started that you and I will talk about, I'm sure, in a little bit, but some things that we've started that haven't gotten to completion, and overwhelming positive feedback from constituents about the things that we've done to improve their life already, and things that we can continue to do. And so the work's not finished yet, and so we have announced that we're going to run again in 2022. And unfortunately, that's the bad part about being on the House of Representatives side. You run every 2 years, you feel like you're always campaigning, and while that last one feels like it was a decade ago, right now we sit about the same distance to the next one, and that one seems like it's very close because of session upcoming. It'll be here before you know it. So we're excited to run, and I say we, my wife and I, are excited to continue to try to serve in this role.
Mm-hmm. And you have mentioned it looked like a decade, like this 1 year you have been like a decade. Things are not finished yet, so you had a lot on your plate. And I saw that also on the internet, you drafted a few bills, and some of them even got signatured by the governor eventually. And you sponsored quite a few bills. So what have you done so far in this just 1 year?
Sure.
And what are you planning to do for this legislative session?
So state representatives are limited to 8 bills. You can file as many as you want, but you can actually only run 8 because there's 101 of us. They don't want each of us filing 70 bills and being ridiculous. The floor leader Eccles has a great saying. I think last year there were 3,000 bills filed. He says it every year. There are not 3,000 things that need to be fixed with Oklahoma, and we'll weed out and combine and do some things like that. But last year I was very blessed and fortunate. My background as an attorney helped me very much be able to read and understand the process and hit the ground running. Dr. Butler, former president here, always says that when you go to that building and you get elected for that position, you go to college and major in everything. Because things that I didn't know anything about a year ago, PBMs and water issues and healthcare issues that I'd never even thought of. Now I have to be well versed in and able to represent my constituents in that arena. And so you're drinking from not one fire hose, but about 20 at a time. And so, but a few things, I was able to either sponsor as the House author, the original author, or present as the one carrying the bill, or co-author being from the Senate, be the principal House author on Senate bills, 15 bills that were signed and went to the governor's desk and were passed, which was the most by far of any freshman, and it's something I'm proud of. None of those bills were something that I went in with the intent to file. It was things that were brought to my attention either by constituents or by other members, issues that they thought that I could address. And so again, I was very honored to have that trust, number one, from the constituents after an overwhelming victory in the election last year, the further confidence to say, hey, I know you can fix this and do it quickly. Some of those issues and some of those that will come up next year that we'll address here in a minute. But then also, a lot of freshmen don't get the opportunity to be the House author from Senate bills, because senators want someone who is going to be able to carry that through. And quite frankly, a lot of freshmen, it takes a little bit of time to understand how that works. But I think my background as an attorney, being aggressive, not being afraid to speak up, really helped and garnered me a lot of opportunities, and I was very thankful for those. Humbled, quite frankly, to be asked by so many senators to run bills, and even some of my House members. A couple of the bills I ran were Chairman Wallace, who's the chairman of Appropriation and Budgets. He has so many things on his plate. He asked me if I could run a couple, and that was a big honor for me, because he could have gone to anybody, and anybody in the House would have said yes. And the fact that he chose me really mattered to me, and it made me, be very proud of that opportunity. And obviously, you don't want to mess those up, so you make sure and get the chairman's bills handled correctly and well. So it was an incredible opportunity, and like I said, 15 bills were passed, and that's more than I thought that I would pass in the first 2 years, much less year one. So I'm pretty excited about that.
Yeah, so the standards are pretty high now for the upcoming session. Yeah, maybe 20 bills this time.
Yeah, no, and I tell people it's not the number of bills that matters, but the quality. And each one of these was high quality and something I could put my stamp on. I'd rather pass no bills than pass 15 bills that aren't good, that aren't in the best interest of my constituents. And so all of these bills are things I can be proud of.
So what are a few things you have in mind, like for the upcoming session? Or maybe what things are you already working on? Sure.
So obviously I ran an interim study this summer regarding illegal land acquisition, land that's being purchased and used by non-citizens, which is primarily for marijuana grows. And so how we stem that and do it properly constitutionally, because a lot of people have all sorts of ideas of how to fix that, but most of them are unconstitutional. So I'm trying to make sure that we do it that way. That's one of the things that I'm focused on. Another thing, I've got a few bills that I'll be running regarding water issues kind of related to that. The Water Resources Board presented at my study and asked me if I'd run a few bills to kind of help them. Water's a commodity we don't talk about all the time in Oklahoma, but it's one of our precious commodities, especially in western Oklahoma. I know you haven't been here all that long, but we go through droughts very quickly sometimes, and you can see around the outcome of those droughts, the trees that, the whole group of trees that don't have any leaves on it are just sitting dead. Number one, that's a safety issue for fires, and number two, it's unsightly. But also number three, it's a lack of just rainwater. We have long periods of issues like that, and so trying to make sure that we protect our water, our aquifers out here is a resource that we probably overlook a lot. We focus on oil and gas. We focus on things that really quite generate dollars, whether it be jobs or taxes. But our water is something that needs to really have our focus, and so that's something that I'm going to focus on next year as well. And then I have a few constituent request bills, one of them involving elections, poll workers at elections. I have a constituent who's an independent and can't serve as a poll worker in Oklahoma because you have to be registered Republican or Democrat to be a poll worker. That doesn't make any sense to me. I don't care what you're registered. If you're a registered voter and want to be a part of the process, we have a shortage of poll workers right now. That's something that we should look at and figure out why that is and how we can fix that. And I love those. Those are my favorite, the constituent request bills, the ones that people come to you and say, this is a problem, I'm trying to help and I can't help. Let's fix that. And those are the easy ones, right? When you're trying to be a part of the solution and you're having an obstacle through something that I can help at the legislature, that checks every box, and it is something I'm happy to carry in front of the body.
Okay, then let's go to the possible legalization of cannabis, weed pot, however you want to call it. We have medical cards right now in Oklahoma. Yeah, you can purchase it and consume it medically. But right now there is a petition filed that calls for the legalization of recreational use. Do you support this approach, or would you say we are good with medical?
Well, I would tell you that the medical version we have as it stands now is basically recreational. You or I can go online and purchase a card for $40, basically, and check a few boxes. Right now, almost 10% of Oklahomans have a medical marijuana card. That's twice as high as any other state in the United States. I would tell you that we have basically legalized recreational marijuana. My focus is making sure that it's actually true medical marijuana. I do not want to keep people away from medicine that will help improve their quality of life. And that was the intent behind the passing of medical marijuana. Question 788. I do think that we have opened Pandora's box a little bit through that. I am not supportive of just complete recreational marijuana. I think that medicinal marijuana is very helpful and is very useful, and something that we need to continue to educate the public about, continue to educate doctors in how to incorporate that, and truly make it a medical program. That's what I hope, and that's what my sincere focus is on. It is make it a medical program, and make sure that people have access, patients have access to that medicine.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned it, the box of Pandora a little bit. What we have, and you're certainly right in some ways, because we have all those illegal grows right now, also in Custer County.
Sure.
I've heard that with non-American citizens. It's not me.
Thank you for clarifying.
What would you say? Let's say we go all in recreational right now. Which, in terms of box of Medora, which problems could that create if we have an all-in recreational program?
Sure. So we already have, Pandora's box, however you want to say it, whatever, you want to use. The cat's out of the bag, or toothpaste is out of the tube. We're not going to put it back in. But I think if you go to true recreational, right now, 40% of every grow license in the United States is in Oklahoma. I mean, think about that. 4 out of every 10. Right now, we have 19 times the amount of grow facilities as Colorado. We have 10 times the amount of grow facilities as California, and California has 10 times the number of people we do. We are being, we talk about the Oklahoma standard. I don't know if you've heard that. It's something that we talk about all the time, especially nationally. Our standard of being a good neighbor to those around us is very high, and we're doing a very bad job of that right now. Law enforcement agencies from around the United States are having to focus on, hey, what do we do with Oklahoma? This is a problem, and that's not where Oklahoma wants to be. We don't want to be the leaders of problems. We want to be the leaders of solutions and the leaders of fixes. And so that's really where my focus is. I think that if you open it to recreational, it's a whole nother bag of cats that are going to be out, and more toothpaste is going to come out of the tube. I think if we can fix what we have already put in place, we can be the leader nationwide of, hey, this is how a medical marijuana program is supposed to be, because we have such great opportunities here, and we have great people here that the other places don't have, that we can be the leader in medical marijuana of how to do it correctly. We just have to get back to that.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any concrete ideas in terms of how to fix the medical program and how to make it better?
There are several different ideas running around right now. Some of them mine, some of them my colleagues. Obviously, there are a few legislators who have really led the charge in medical marijuana. Floor Leader Eccles, Representative Fettgatter, and others. I'm following their lead because, again, when you're trying to major in everything, you need to let the people that have been in the fight and understand that the problems the deepest really have that focus. And so I'm trying to support them as best I can. I have constituents and advocates here that I talk to in Custer County of, hey, here are the problems that we're facing on a weekly and day-to-day basis. Here's what we need from you. And I'm trying to be their voice as well in this process. And they know that as long as I'm working with Eccles and Fettgatter and the others that have focused on that their voice will be heard through those. And so there are a number of different possible scenarios we've dealt with, but we're trying to do it in a way that it doesn't limit the opportunities for Oklahomans that want to go into that business. Now, I would tell you right now, about everybody who wants to has been in it, but we want it to be sustainable. The people that the illegal grows hurt the most are the Oklahomans that are trying to do it the right way, that are following the rules, that are getting the licenses, that are paying the fees, that are paying the testing, and then those around them aren't, undercutting their prices, undercutting their market, and they're the ones who are getting hurt the most. And I don't want to see those local small businesses go under. I want to try to support them.
Yeah. I actually know an American farmer who's doing the exact thing right now. He got a little bit bankrupt type of thing with his usual farming, thought he can grow pot. but there's too much pot out there, not enough demand,
correct,
so to speak. And
right.
I also know, like, it's very easy to, because you said it's kind of like a recreational thing already. It's kind of legalized, because you literally go to a doctor and say, yeah, I have sleeping problems, I have this or that, and he says, yeah, okay, you get a medical card now.
Yeah.
Is that maybe something that needs to be fixed, that you actually have to visit the doctor not only via telemedicine but also in person and really like check, okay, is that really a condition where he needs that?
Well, and I think I think you may be onto something there. It is something that's been talked about. The other thing that I'm concerned is there are definitely issues that marijuana can address and fix, but there are also, we need to understand the science better. And I'm talking about myself here. I don't understand the science of it. Is this the best medicine? Just because it is a possible, sometimes you can take, an Advil and fix a problem, but is that the best problem? Is it creating more problems? Is it masking the problem? And so learning about it from a medicinal side, getting more doctors involved, getting more people that understand the science of it and say, is this the best way to, is this the best treatment for that? Because I do think, quite frankly, people that are using marijuana versus opioids is phenomenal, because it doesn't have that addictive trait. It's not going to. Now, I do disagree that you can't overdose on marijuana. It's scientifically proven that can happen, but the rate of overdose of opioids is dramatically higher, and so protecting Oklahomans from those opioids through medicinal marijuana is a great opportunity. We need to continue to explore those, but I don't think medicinal marijuana is the end-all be-all for all problems. If not sleeping, is there other things that we can do to address that? Is that the best, least restrictive alternative? And so I think we need to continue to grow, and I think that's an education issue for myself included.
Mm-hmm. Okay, then let's go to the redistricting that we just had. Your house, District 57, almost changed completely overnight, more or less, and really switched from having parts of Canadian County, and now it's kind of starting right at Weatherford.
Yep.
You're losing Elk City, or at least the northern part of Elk City. What other changes have been made in your house, District 57, and how do you personally feel about it?
Sure. So you're right. The majority of people remain the same. Obviously, Custer County has about 27,000 out of the 39,000, but we lose our 12,000 friends and neighbors on the east side, Hydro, Gary, Calumet, and the rural areas around them, and flip completely to the west side, all of Roger Mills County, and then the west half of Beckham County, including Eric and Sayre. And so it is a change. Obviously, anytime change happens, it can be uncomfortable, because I have relationships in Gary and I have relationships in Hydro and Calumet that I'm going to miss. Mm-hmm. I've enjoyed serving those people. I've enjoyed working and getting to know the people in the school systems and the people in the city, city level. And so there is some change. I don't want to say discomfort in a bad way, but anxiety about what the new issues will be, because each town, each city, each county has their own issues, and I'm not aware of those issues yet. And so again, you're going back to school. You're trying to figure out, okay, how do I need to serve? Because the needs of Roger Mills County or the needs of Western Beckham County are going to be different than Custer County in some ways. So are they in conflict? Do they mesh? Can I go the same way, or are they completely unique? Where the issues in Roger Mills County are things I need to deal with that Custer County really doesn't care either way about. And so, last night was my first opportunity to go to an event in Roger Mills County, start meeting people, getting to know about some of the issues, and and the ones I heard about last night are very similar to the ones I hear here. It's not that far away, but it is. You're going to a whole new frontier. You're exploring a new area that, while I do know a few people, there are lots that I haven't met yet, and a lot of new doors to knock, a lot of miles, between those, because I think we're at something like 2,700 square miles now, and so it's a large area, and so there's going to be a lot more miles on the truck, than the 20,000 I put on this year already, especially if we have a campaign next year, knocking doors and meeting people and seeing how I can serve them, because it's something that the average voter doesn't really pay attention to. They know that it happens, but they don't know me from Adam right now. They couldn't tell you if I'm their rep or you. And so, getting to know them, letting them feel comfortable with me, where they are comfortable enough to come to me with their issues. And then there's this weird transition period, right, where so that we go in next week in a special session to vote on the the new districts, but they're not changed until next year. And so you've got this year of, okay, who's my rep, who's not, who do I call if I have an issue, and so there has to be a little grace given to constituents. And obviously reps need to work together to make sure that, it's not a territorial issue. It's a, hey, let's both try to serve this person for this year, and then we'll go on. And, the new boundary lines will take into effect next November.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure it's not easy. Yeah, you have those two different districts type of thing, ranging from western part of Oklahoma City right to the Texas border, pretty much.
Right.
Yeah? So that's...
Well, the needs are very different because some of those issues in Calumet, being that close to Oklahoma City, are very different than Cheyenne, who, is almost 3 hours, 2.5 hours from Oklahoma City. Their needs and their concerns are very different. And so it's just a matter of quickly familiarizing yourself with each other to where their needs, they know who you are and what you stand for, and the integrity you have, to where they feel comfortable coming to you with those needs. Because if you can help them, but they're not comfortable coming to you, it doesn't do any good. And so, trying to do everything you can to make that process go very quickly to make sure that they feel comfortable coming to you with those issues and know that, hey, I might not be from Roger Mills County, but I will fight for you just like I'm from there.
And whenever there's redistricting, obviously, wherever in the country, it's always the same thing, kind of, and then people start arguing, politicians or parties just try to kind of make it easier for the own represented party to win the next election.
Sure.
What makes you confident that this wasn't the case with this redistricting?
Well, you're not saying the ugly G word, and I appreciate it. That gerrymandering word. People love to throw that out, regardless of what happens. The thing I love about this is all 101 representatives still live in their district, regardless of what party they were. Nobody was drawn out of their district. I will tell you that the thing that I think this election or this redistricting plan has over all the others is the amount of public input. We had an unprecedented number of public events throughout the state, one in every region, to make sure people could come and be heard. We gave people the opportunity to draw their own map. You could get on and draw your own map and submit it. And the interesting thing about that is there were a lot of maps, there were a lot of map submissions, and some of those public map submissions were incorporated into the final account. I'm very proud of Representative Martinez, who led our redistricting, Senator Paxton, who led the Senate side. I think they worked together really well to make sure that what was best for Oklahoma was put forward, and I have no doubt that it will uphold any scrutiny in the court system. People like to be upset, especially about their congressional districts at the federal level. I encourage people that think that there are issues with those to go look at the map for Illinois, and then they'll see what that really looks like.
Let's talk about COVID. And we have to, unfortunately. It's still not over. It's going on for almost 2 years now, and there were so many different approaches made by foreign country leaders, by state governors, by the president, former and current president. Oklahoma was more like a little bit more relaxed in terms of restrictions and everything. How was it for you? You were at least partly in that time a little bit of involved in politics.
Sure.
How would you describe it, or how would you feel about the restrictions that Oklahoma did compared to other states, and how well went Oklahoma through this crisis?
Well, I'll tell you, it was very interesting because I announced that I was going to run for office in the end of August, September, of 19, and then the world changed before my actual, filing. And I have had a lot of friends tell me who would ever want to be in politics right now, and I remind them that I volunteered to jump in before the world changed. But I think overall Oklahoma handled it very well. You look at what we've done. We led the nation. We were top 6 or 7 in vaccine rollout, making it available. I'm very proud of how we handled the vaccine, how we got it out and made it available to those who wanted to take it. I'm very proud of the fact that we didn't force it on people that didn't. The other thing I'm most proud about is we navigated. This was a terrible time. And it still is. Thankfully, I think it's going down. You look at the history of pandemics, there are always 2 spikes. We've already endured the second spike, and I was looking at a map yesterday. Oklahoma City's out of the red category for, I think, the first time in almost 2 years. And so it's fantastic. We're hopefully seeing, the end is in sight. I know that none of us are more ready to be out of it than the next. We're all ready to be done. But I think overwhelmingly, I'm most proud of the fact that we navigated this without killing our economy. Oklahoma, we went into session last year expecting a $1.2 billion shortfall. We ended up with just the opposite, a $1.2 billion surplus. We were able to put money into our rainy day fund, basically a state savings account. We have over $1 billion in that for the first time ever, where we didn't even have a savings, have any savings as early as 6 years ago. And so I'm very proud of that fact. More than that, the state treasurer just came out with a new report 2 days ago that said our projections are being exceeded by 13.9% this year, and we've really put ourselves in a position. We all know the federal government has been sending out quite a bit of money, and inflation's uptick. The way we were able to survive as a state and keep our economy open, I really think that our leadership gets a big pat on the back for that, because it made it to where when we I say that we are open, but when we're out of the pandemic, when we're fully reopened, we are going to be in a much better position than a lot of other states. And that's why you see so many people from the West Coast and the East Coast looking to come here, because they can come here and have a business now and have something to reopen. Whereas, if they stay, they're not going to be able to have anything to open back in 2 years.
Federal government currently tries to enforce a vaccine mandate for, I think, federal contractors and for businesses over 100 employees and things like that. Oklahoma is one of the states challenging that plan right now. I think in district court, I think number 5 or 6 or something along those lines. Do you support those efforts?
Yes, I do. We passed a bill last year to not only give support to the Attorney General of the state of Oklahoma, but to fund the defense of that lawsuit. The Sixth Circuit, you're absolutely right. Our case is filed in the Fifth Circuit. The Sixth has already said, hey, this is unconstitutional, because quite frankly it is. And I know that when we talk about COVID, everybody gets emotions, either for or against masks or against mandates. And, my issue with it is I don't want the government telling me what to do in any area of my life, personal life. I don't want them to tell me what kind of clothes my kids has to wear. I don't want them to tell me what kind of medicine I have to give them if they give a cough. That's the best part about America. And I'd love to pick your brain on the side here about some of the things that you think, but we have those freedoms. We have those opportunities to make decisions that we think are best for ourselves, for our children, and for our future. And I've said it a lot. I received the COVID vaccine. Mm-hmm. I didn't have a history of issues with any of those kind of flu shots or things like that, vaccinations. So I received the shot, but it was my choice, and I had that opportunity to talk to my doctor one-on-one to make the choice that was best for me. I'll tell you, I love the fact that some people have the right to not. And if that's not what's best for them and their children, I support that. That Sixth Circuit has already said that it's unconstitutional. I don't think it'll be long till our court case that we joined in the Fifth Circuit also says that it's unconstitutional, and I think it'll go to the Supreme Court of the United States, and I think that'll be upheld as well, because quite frankly, unfortunately, and listen, we get bombarded with polarizations about Republicans or Democrats or conservatives or liberals, and that's got to stop. I think that's a big part of the problem, and I'm not trying to jump ahead on to some other questions you may ask, but this is an issue that everyone should be concerned about. Anyone in the White House having this kind of power and trying to usurp the authority of the Constitution should be a concern, because just because you're in favor of what they may be doing this time, the next time you might not be. We don't want them, mandating religion or anything else. And so I think it's a very slippery slope, and I think that the Supreme Court will eventually say that this is unconstitutional.
And after COVID now, you said, Oklahoma is coming out much better of that crisis than other states. What are some of the general problems that Oklahoma will be faced with in the next few years? Sure.
Well, if I had a crystal ball and could tell you all the problems, I probably would be, governor or supreme leader or something else. I think we all wish we had that. But I think that our issues are still the same. Continuing to increase the shortage of teachers, continue to increase the shortage of engineers, continue to increase the shortage of nursing staff and healthcare, especially in rural health. We all know how instrumental Southwestern is to that process. We're continuing to lead the state in putting out the best teachers in the state. We have a great engineering tech program, and our pharmacy program and rural healthcare is second to none. We're about to expand on that with some new opportunities, thanks to the Hodges, and what we plan to do through that. I think the ARPA dollars that are coming out will be instrumental in making sure that we continue to take care of rural Oklahoma, because as the population, the reason my district changed so much is because of the census. As Oklahoma kind of continues to migrate more to an Oklahoma City suburb, metro area, and a Tulsa metro area, we have to remember that there's still a large part of the state that lives in rural Oklahoma, and they deserve a good quality of life and access to health care. And I think that those are going to continue to be our issues: good education, good health care, and good job opportunities. And so we, neither one of those, none of those three are in a vacuum. I think they all go together. If you have good teaching, you're going to have good job opportunities. If you have good job opportunities, you're going to have good health care. I think those three all go together, and infrastructure is a big part of that.
And maybe specifically for young people, what would you say are one of the really challenges and problems they're growing up with during those times in Oklahoma?
Well, and I guess I should ask you your definition of young. I still feel that I'm rather young.
Up until 25, let's say.
Okay.
Until you're graduating college.
Sure. So I still try to think of myself as young, even though I turn, the big 40 here pretty soon. But I will tell you that I try very hard to listen to those people in those positions, because I think you're better suited to tell me what problems you're facing than I am telling you what problems you're facing. But I will repeat some of the things I've heard: job opportunities, cost of living issues, some of those that are what I've been told, and I'm repeating back to you, because I don't think it's, I really don't like politicians that get in and think they can speak for you better than you can speak for yourself. And so I listen to young people. I listen even to, high school, junior high, grade school age kids about the things that they're facing, because they know better than I do. I listen to my children. I have, 5th and 3rd grade and pre-K. And so maybe not the youngest, but the older two definitely tell me, hey, these are things that I deal with on a day-to-day basis, things that I would have never even thought of dealing with when I was, 8 or 10 years old. Same thing for high school age, college age. I love listening to those individuals and them tell me, hey, these are what I'm facing. These are concerns I have. Have you thought about that? Because some of them maybe I have, but quite frankly, if I'm not in that position, the things that you deal with, as a near college graduate, hey, here's the issues that I'm facing moving forward, are very different than the issues that I faced even just 20 years ago graduating college. And so I think it's very important. That's one of those key traits to any kind of service, is to listen. I said, it's no different than a waiter or waitress. That's exactly right. If you ask me for lemonade and I bring you water, then I've failed. So it's very important to listen to those students and those young people and say, hey, here's what I need, and give them and meet that need. And so it really comes down to, it's said a lot, but see a need, meet a need is a very simple way to serve, and it's kind of one of my mottos.
You mentioned one of the topics that Oklahoma is faced with, infrastructure, and I know it every time I drive to Oklahoma City, that certain bridge over I-44 or on the I-40. It's horrible, but I have to say, compared to other states, Oklahoma is still a pretty good infrastructure. I have to say that. It's still better than in other states. We had a recently passed infrastructure bill in Congress on the national level. You probably have seen that bill. Do you think, or do you expect it to benefit Oklahoma in terms of infrastructure? Well,
it absolutely will. One thing that Oklahoma needs to really be proud of, and it's not a sexy topic. We were like 48th or 9th or 50th in structurally deficient bridges 15 years ago. Right now, we're number 7 or 8 in the country in a very quick span. That's something that we really put our money where our mouth is and quit just talking about it and started being about it. And so I'm very proud of the work that we've done on our bridges. We continue to get better on highways, and we all have those. Unfortunately, in Oklahoma, you have extreme weather changes that causes those bridges to have to be built in a way where they give a little bit when it's extremely cold or extremely hot. And so there are some bumps. But I'm proud that you said it. I encourage people to travel to different states, because there are states that maybe have better roads than us, but there are a lot of states that have a lot worse roads than us. And especially rural Oklahoma, I'm very proud of what we've done with our roads and bridges, especially our county commissioners and the way they work on so many gravel roads are very difficult to take care of because weather really plays a big impact and can wreak havoc with those. And so I'm very proud of how they've handled that. One of the things I think we need to continue when we talk about infrastructure, broadband, access to high-speed internet, that's something that we need to continue to get better at. And I will tell you, I've talked with a couple different companies recently that are going to be bringing fiber to Western Oklahoma at full expense of the company, no expense to the cities, no expense to the counties. So Clinton, Elk City, Weatherford, all have that opportunity. Now it's up to each one of them. I'll tell you, Clinton and Elk City have already passed those through the city council, and we'll be getting fiber to 90% of the homes in Clinton and Oak City will have fiber in the next 3 years. Weatherford's got it, I think, on their agenda for next month. And so that's a big deal to me. These are companies that have a set amount of dollars, and once those dollars are gone, it's over. And so to be able to get those companies with the leadership from Weatherford, with the leadership from Clinton and Elk City, the 3 larger towns in my district, because they're going to start there and then they're going to look to expand from those, is vital. This facility right here at Southwestern will have very good access to 100 gig download and upload true symmetrical speeds, where this facility right here can be no different than downtown LA in one of the big time studios, and quite frankly, you could do it from right here and work for an LA studio right here in Western Oklahoma. And that's one of those opportunities. You want to talk about the issues facing young people. They want to have Western Oklahoma a way to raise families, and but also not be limited on, hey, well, if I'm not going to be in oil and gas, I'm not going to be a farmer, what are my options? Being able to be a video technician and run a high-tech worldwide operation right here in Custer County is a huge draw, because the cost of living, as we all know, is dramatically less than LA or Nashville or New York or whatever it's going to be. And so I'm really excited about that. I think that to kind of get back to your question, I apologize, I've gone on a little, but the infrastructure bill that passed was the better of the 2 versions, because I do think it's going to be about $110 billion towards the states, and that'll be proportioned out, of course, but Oklahoma will receive some of that, and we will be able to do it. Now, it's not exactly what I would have passed, but I'm not going to let great get in the way of good. So we're going to take that, it's passed now, and we're going to try to use it the best we can to really make an impact for Oklahoma, and again, prepare us for the future and put us ahead moving forward.
And then last question, you also already mentioned it, we have a very high polarization in this country, and sometimes it's getting a little bit in the way of actually getting things done. And often we do that unintentionally. We don't really we're criticizing polarization while we're still contributing to it in some way. What can everybody of us do out of a politician's perspective? What can everybody do, small steps every day, in order to try and kind of overcome the differences?
Well, I think, and your life's been very different than mine. I remember when social media kind of became into existence and really grew out of nothing into this, giant living, breathing mechanism that it is now. And I think we have to remember that, quite frankly, at the end of the day, number one, we need to continue to remember that the person on the other side of that is a human being that has value, and we can disagree and still move the ball forward. You think about some of the things that were done. Criminal justice reform that was passed a few years ago in Oklahoma has been phenomenal, and it was bipartisan support. So just because we don't agree on everything, let's not, number one, lose the ability to have a dialogue, lose the ability to say, you know what, I don't think that I agree with you, and here's where I'm at. And maybe, maybe we start very far apart, but maybe we take one step closer together. That's a lost art. The other thing is, it's very easy to get behind a keyboard and say anything and have no ramifications. But the reality is there are ramifications, and the ramifications really trickle down to our kids. I don't get into arguments with people on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or whatever. It's not going to help. It's not going to be a part of the solution. And that's kind of my last thing is, if you're not a part of the solution, you're a part of the problem. So it's easy to talk about it. It's time to be about it. And so if you really have something that you're invested in that you think is wrong, that you think that could be just, maybe it's okay, but it could be better, get involved, volunteer, invest your time, invest your resources, and good government's one of the best things we can invest in, because it's very important that all of us have good representatives. And no, I don't know anybody that agrees with me on every single topic, and I hope that we don't lose our individual identity, because I think that sometimes with the polarization we kind of get this herd mentality, and social media loves to divide us. It's us versus them, it's you versus me. That doesn't have to be that way. That's a personal decision, and it's up to us to decide, you know what, I disagree with you, but I respect you, and I want to learn more about your position and teach you a little bit about mine too, and have a dialogue. Don't be afraid to come together and then be a part of the solution. I think that, if you just scream at somebody on social media, you're not really helping. You're just furthering to prove, oh, well, you're one of them. You continue to make that gap wider. We need to do better about bridging that gap, like you talked about. The polarization's got to stop, and it sounds very trite, but I think it has to stop with each one of us individually. We have to look in the mirror and say, am I saying we hate polarization, but am I getting on social media and creating more polarization? And so, it's tough, because even things that you can do, I've made posts on social media that I thought were harmless and started banter back and forth between two sides, and I'm just trying to put information out there, and all of a sudden it starts a war, and then I look in the mirror and then saying, am I being a part of the polarization? Am I promoting that? So I think that each one of us have to take self-assess, and take time to say, am I being a part of the problem, or am I being a part of the solution, and do better, and it's a day-to-day fight. There are days that you just want to get on social media and rant about this, that, or the other, and that's not what social media is for. It was intended originally to connect with people around the world and to learn about things that we can do. There's so many good things that social media has, the ability to send money to some cause around the world instantly, because we used to not know about those things for weeks or months, to then days, to now instantly. I can hear about something that's going on the other side of the country real time, and then amazing how people can rally and support some good cause, try to fix some injustice right away. That's what it's about. And so we need to continue to focus on those, not just around the world, in our own backyard, but I think that there are lots of ways, and those are a few that we can do to really fix that problem, or at least start to stem the tide.
Anthony Moore, thank you so much for taking the time and for the interview.
Thanks, Joe. I appreciate you having me.